All I did was park my custom motorcycle in my own driveway, but Karen couldn't stand the sight of it. She reported me, got the HOA involved, and thought she'd won. What she didn't expect was for me to turn the entire street into a biker rally that would make her regret ever messing with me. I'll be honest, my pride and joy isn't my house, or my job, or even my tricked-out garage. It's my custom-built Harley-Davidson Road Glide, matte black with deep chrome trim, flame-detailed fenders, and a sound that turns heads every time I crank the ignition. I worked years to afford it, spent months restoring it, and every weekend, I roll it out to the driveway, give it a proper polish, and just admire what I built with my own two hands. But apparently, not everyone in my neighborhood shares my appreciation. Her name is Karen. No surprise there. She lives 2 houses down, and I swear she patrols the neighborhood like she's the sheriff of some sad little western town. She walks her little yappy dog every morning and every evening, and she stares at everything like it's personally offending her existence. Flags? Too patriotic. Lawn gnomes? Too childish. My neighbor's bird feeder? A squirrel magnet, she once hissed. And me? I was her latest obsession. It started on a random Saturday afternoon. I was out front, buffing the tank, admiring how the sunlight danced off the chrome, when I heard that familiar clack-clack of her sandals on the sidewalk. I didn't even look up, I could feel the disapproval radiating from her like a microwave. That thing again? She sneered. I glanced up. Morning, Karen. You know, this is a quiet family neighborhood. That machine doesn't exactly fit the atmosphere. I smirked. You mean my motorcycle? It's parked in my driveway, on my property. It's an eyesore, she snapped. And an environmental hazard. Do you really think we want to look at that every day? I raised an eyebrow. It's a Harley, not a toxic waste dump. She scoffed and stormed off without another word. I shrugged it off. Karen did this to everyone. She once tried to report a neighbor for painting his mailbox blue. I figured she'd bark and move on like always. Boy, was I wrong. 3 days later, I got a letter from the HOA. A violation notice. It read, "You are in violation of HOA Code 4.2b, displaying non-stationary, recreational, or oversized vehicles in public view for an extended period. Please remove the motorcycle from visible areas within 48 hours or face escalating fines." I almost laughed. Non-stationary recreational vehicle? It's not an RV. It's not even parked on the street, it's on my own property. I called the HOA and got their voicemail. Left a message. No response. Then I emailed. Still nothing. I could already feel the noose tightening. The next evening, I saw her again. Karen. She was walking her dog and looked a little too smug for someone who just went on a morning power trip. "Got your letter?" she asked, pretending to be innocent. "You called them, didn't you?" I said, stepping closer. She looked up at me with a sweet fake smile. "HOA's just doing their job. We all have to follow the rules." "You mean your rules?" She shrugged. "Don't take it personally. Some things just don't belong in a nice neighborhood." Oh, she was enjoying this. Now, I don't usually let people get under my skin. But there was something about her, the way she strutted around, convinced that she could reshape the world to match her own sterile little vision of perfection, that made my blood boil. I built that bike. I take care of that bike. And I wasn't going to be bullied into hiding it just because one nosy neighbor didn't like how it looked. I spent that night researching the HOA bylaws. Every page. Every footnote. I found loopholes, contradictions, and a bunch of vague language that could be interpreted a dozen different ways. Code 4.2b wasn't meant for bikes, it was designed to prevent people from parking boats and broken-down campers on their lawns. I had photos, timestamps, receipts, and even witness statements from neighbors who thought my bike was cool. I started crafting a response, ready to push back. But something kept gnawing at me. Karen didn't do this because of rules. She did it because she wanted to win. Because she liked control. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, a sternly worded email wasn't going to cut it. If she thought my one motorcycle was an eyesore, she hadn't seen anything yet. The violation letter felt like a slap in the face. Not just because it was petty, but because it was personal. I hadn't done anything wrong. My motorcycle wasn't broken down, leaking oil, or even blocking the sidewalk. It was in my driveway, polished to perfection, and parked like a damn showpiece. But the HOA? They acted like I'd left a junkyard in the middle of a rose garden. I read that notice at least 10 times, pacing around my kitchen while my blood simmered. Extended period, it said. What even counts as extended? I ride the thing regularly. It's not abandoned, it's loved, maintained, cherished. And that little nugget about it being a non-stationary recreational vehicle? That was a stretch, and they knew it. If anything, it proved that Karen had written the complaint herself and the HOA just rubber-stamped it. That night, I drafted an email. I kept it civil, but firm. To whom it may concern, I am in receipt of your recent violation notice regarding my motorcycle. I would like clarification on the specific nature of the violation, as the vehicle is properly registered, operational, and parked within the boundaries of my private property. Unless you can provide further legal justification, I will consider this matter closed. Sincerely, Jake Simmons, lot number 27. I didn't expect a warm reply. I didn't expect a reply at all. But what I got, that surprised even me. The next morning, there was a follow-up letter on my porch. Hand-delivered. This one was more aggressive. It cited escalating fines, $75 per day, and even threatened a lien if I didn't comply within 72 hours. No hearing. No discussion. Just straight to punishment. And that's when I knew this wasn't just HOA policy, it was Karen pulling the strings. She wasn't satisfied with making a complaint. No, she was digging her heels in. She wanted to win. And the HOA? They were her little chess pieces. Most of the board members were elderly, barely paid attention, and probably thought the violation was about an RV or something truly obstructive. Karen had manipulated the system to punish me for owning a motorcycle. Well, if it was a game she wanted, then a game she'd get. But not on her terms. I stopped by the local coffee shop that morning and met up with my buddy Dave. He rides a Triumph Rocket and works at a custom garage on the edge of town. I told him the story. He laughed so hard he nearly choked on his espresso. You serious? He said. Your HOA's that uptight? Karen's serious, I replied. Oof. The worst kind. Then I pitched him my idea. At first, he blinked. Then his eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Dude, I know dozens of riders who'd be down. Especially if we make it a show. And that's exactly what we did. I spent the next 2 days making calls. Not angry emails. Not appeals. Not arguments. No, I was building an army. My old riding crew. Mechanics. Custom shop guys. Weekend warriors. Even a few retired cops who rode Harleys for fun. Every single one of them had a story about a Karen or a stuck-up HOA ruining the vibe somewhere. And every single one of them said yes. Meanwhile, Karen kept walking her dog past my driveway like she was keeping score. My Harley stayed exactly where it was. I even bought one of those fancy LED wheel lights to make it stand out more at night. Let her stew on it. The day before the HOA's deadline, I got another notice, this time with a fine included. $150. They said the motorcycle still hadn't been removed. I smiled and paid it in quarters. Dropped them in a plastic container with a note. Thanks for the motivation. See you tomorrow. That night, I stayed up prepping. Cleaning the driveway. Measuring space along the curb. Alerting a few friendly neighbors so they wouldn't be surprised. And then, bright and early the next morning, they started rolling in. One by one. Engines rumbling, chrome gleaming in the morning sun. Harleys. Indians. Ducatis. Yamahas. Even a couple of chopper builds that looked straight out of a Mad Max film. Every bike parked in perfect formation, like a dealership display crossed with a parade. By 9 a.m., the entire street was lined with motorcycles. Both sides. My driveway, my curb, even some of my neighbors' curbs, because they volunteered their spots just to be part of it. Some guys brought lawn chairs. Others brought coffee. A few brought music. Classic rock playing from saddlebags. It wasn't a party, not officially. It was just a gathering. A very loud, very chrome-filled, very in-your-face gathering. Karen stepped outside around 9:30. She looked like she'd just seen the gates of hell open. Her face turned red. Then pale. Then red again. Her little dog yelped at the sudden chorus of revving engines. She stormed over to me, fists clenched. What the hell is this? Good morning, I said casually. It's Bike Appreciation Day. Didn't you hear? You can't do this. This is a quiet neighborhood. I gestured around. We're all legally parked. Most of them rode in. Some are visiting. HOA can't say a word. They're harassing me. No one's on your property. No one's even talking to you. Though I gotta say, that's a sweet robe you're wearing. Really ties the whole meltdown together. She stormed off, red-faced and shaking. 10 minutes later, a couple HOA board members arrived. Confused. Flustered. One of them walked over with his phone in hand. Mr. Simmons, what exactly is going on here? I shrugged. Just friends visiting. All vehicles are legal. No one's on the grass. Everyone's parked. I assume that's still allowed? The man looked around helplessly, realizing they couldn't do a thing. Karen stood in her doorway, arms crossed, eyes blazing. And I stood next to my bike, leaned against the seat, and grinned. She wanted a war? She just started one she couldn't win. After the street rally, the neighborhood was buzzing, literally and figuratively. Most people actually loved it. A bunch of neighbors came out to take pictures with the bikes. Kids were wide-eyed, asking about engines and custom paint jobs. Even the elderly couple across from me, who rarely spoke to anyone, brought out lemonade and folding chairs to enjoy the spectacle. It was a massive success. But for Karen? It was a declaration of war. The next morning, my inbox was full. Not from the HOA, but from residents. People thanking me for standing up to the madness. A few said they'd had their own run-ins with Karen over garden ornaments or holiday decorations and were glad someone finally pushed back. Still, deep down, I didn't want this to escalate forever. As satisfying as it was to watch Karen squirm, I wasn't looking to burn the entire neighborhood to the ground over one motorcycle. I figured maybe, just maybe, this had sent the message. Maybe now she'd back off and we could all move on. So I decided to give her a chance. Big mistake. It was Saturday afternoon when I walked down to her house. I left my leather jacket behind. No sunglasses. Just me, dressed casually, hands empty, no smirk. I figured I'd be civil. I'd explain my side, show her that I wasn't trying to provoke anyone, that all I wanted was to enjoy my bike in peace. Her husband answered the door. Quiet guy. Looked like he hadn't had a say in his own home since 2004. Before he could even speak, Karen appeared behind him like a hawk diving in for the kill. Oh, look who it is, she said, arms crossed. Come to apologize? I blinked. Actually, no. I came to talk. Just you and me. Civilly. Civilly, she laughed bitterly. You embarrassed this neighborhood. You turned our street into a circus. You humiliated me. I didn't humiliate you, Karen. You called the HOA on me over a parked motorcycle. I responded in a legal way. No one broke any rules. Don't get smug with me, she snapped. You think just because you have a bunch of leather-wearing hoodlums on speed dial, you can just do whatever you want? I kept my tone level. They're not hoodlums. They're business owners, veterans, and hard-working people. They came because they know what it's like to be bullied by people like you. She scoffed. Bullied? You're the one causing problems. I've lived here for 15 years. People respect me in this community. You think they're on your side? You're new money. A poser. You think parking a Harley makes you tough? My jaw tightened. But I didn't react. I took a breath. I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm offering a truce. You stop reporting me to the HOA, and I'll keep things low-key. No more street shows, no more stunts. Just me, my bike, and my driveway. That's fair. She tilted her head and smirked. Oh, you poor thing. You think I'm scared of you? Then she raised her voice, loud enough for her neighbors to hear. Everyone. Look. Here comes the neighborhood biker gang leader, trying to make peace. A few heads turned. A woman watering her garden glanced over. Someone on their porch paused mid-scroll. Karen's voice rose again. He thinks he can harass me with his little stunt and then come here to intimidate me. Pathetic. I took a step back, stunned. She was staging it, turning a calm conversation into public theater. Twisting the story so it looked like I was harassing her. That's not what this is, I said calmly, trying not to snap. She just smiled sweetly. Sure it isn't. Why don't you take your overgrown toy and roll on home? And then she shut the door in my face. I stood there for a second, absorbing what just happened. She'd mocked me. Twisted my gesture of peace into something ugly. And worse, she'd tried to humiliate me in front of the neighbors. But here's the thing. She made one fatal mistake. She thought she'd won. I walked back to my house without saying a word, but inside, the plan was already forming. No more polite emails. No more negotiations. I had offered her a chance to end it. She didn't just reject it, she turned it into ammunition. So now? I was going all in. That night, I reached out to my network again. This time, not just bikers. I called an old friend who runs a motorcycle accessories shop, custom decals, neon underglow kits, mini flags, chrome skull mounts, the works. I asked if he still had that inventory of American Muscle flags left over from the 4th of July. He did. Hundreds. Then I called a buddy with a drone and a YouTube channel who films bike rallies and stunt shows. Told him I had an idea for a video. And finally, I sent an anonymous tip to the local biker club newsletter. Open invite, this Saturday. Street ride-in show. Suburban location. No burnouts. No noise violation. Just bikes, flags, and community pride. Let's show them who we are. Within 24 hours, I had 47 RSVPs. By Thursday, it was over 100. By Friday night? My street was about to become the most chrome-filled, rumble-ready stretch of suburbia this side of a state fair. All because Karen wanted to turn peace into power. Well, she was about to learn what real power looked like. By the time Saturday morning rolled around, the energy in the air felt electric, like a storm was coming, except this one was wrapped in chrome and rumbled like thunder. I woke up early, barely slept the night before. My driveway had already been cleaned spotless, and I set out lawn chairs, coolers, and a Bluetooth speaker humming with classic rock. It wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about pride. About proving that people like Karen don't get to steamroll the rest of us into submission. The first wave of bikes arrived just after 8 a.m. Rumbling V-twins, growling sport bikes, even a few vintage models that looked like they belonged in a museum rolled down the street with slow, deliberate confidence. Riders nodded to me as they pulled in, one after another, parking with perfect formation like they'd rehearsed it. By 9 a.m., both sides of the block were packed. Every curb was lined with motorcycles, black, chrome, red, custom flame jobs, military green. One guy even had a full American Eagle mural on his tank. And then the flags started going up. My buddy Tony brought about 60 mini American flags and zip-tied them to tailpipes, handlebars, and back racks. Then came the banners: freedom to ride, respect all, fear none, live free or die trying. It was a biker rally in the middle of a manicured suburban street. I stood back and watched the transformation with a stupid grin on my face. This wasn't just a display, it was a statement. And then, the drone went up. My YouTuber friend Nathan launched his Mavic 3 into the sky and began recording the entire scene in sweeping, cinematic passes. The footage looked like something out of a motorcycle documentary, dozens of bikes gleaming in the sun, riders chatting, laughing, even grilling breakfast on a portable setup someone brought. The soundtrack was live: revs, laughter, and Lynyrd Skynyrd. Neighbors started emerging from their houses, some curious, some wide-eyed, a few in robes and coffee mugs just shaking their heads in disbelief. But most were smiling. Some even started walking through the biker lane, taking selfies, chatting with riders, asking about their bikes. A couple of kids from down the street brought out their bicycles and rode slowly between the rows, pretending they were part of it. And then came Karen. She appeared on her front lawn like an evil spirit summoned by sound and sunlight. She stood frozen, arms stiff at her sides, eyes locked on the sea of motorcycles like she'd just stepped into a nightmare. Her little rat dog barked once and ran back inside. She stormed down her porch, red-faced, heading straight for me. "What is this?" she spat. I took off my sunglasses and smiled. "Community gathering. Isn't it beautiful? You turned our street into a gang meetup." "Easy," I said calmly, "these are friends, veterans, business owners. Every one of these bikes is street legal. Every one of them is parked properly. HOA rules allow visitors, remember?" Her face twitched. "You think you're clever? I know I am." Karen looked around, flustered. "You're ruining the peace. The neighborhood is a zoo. No one's blocking driveways. No one's making excessive noise. No laws are being broken. Unlike, say, using HOA authority to target someone's private property just because you don't like the look of it. You don't belong here, she said quietly. And there it was. The truth under the surface. This was never about noise or appearances. Karen didn't want people like me, bikers, free spirits, non-cookie-cutter types, bringing life to her little bubble. I live here, I said, taking a step closer. Paid for my house just like you did. I work hard, I ride hard, and I don't answer to people who hide behind committees. She looked ready to explode. Then came the final blow. A local news van rolled around the corner. Apparently, someone had tipped off the weekend crew at Channel 9 about the motorcycle parade in the suburbs. They showed up with a cameraman, a reporter in a bright blazer, and a big smile. They interviewed me, some of the riders, and a few neighbors who gave glowing support. Live. Karen stood on her lawn watching it happen. When the reporter asked me why we gathered, I said it simply. We're here to show that community comes in all forms. Some of us like flower beds. Some of us like flagpoles. And some of us love motorcycles. But we all deserve respect. I was targeted for something harmless. So I figured I'd respond, with horsepower and unity. It was the kind of soundbite that gets shared. By noon, the footage was already spreading online. Nathan posted his drone video with the title, HOA vs. Harley, when suburbia messes with the wrong biker. It racked up views instantly. Comments flooded in, people cheering, others sharing their own HOA horror stories. Karen disappeared into her house after the news left. Not a word. Not a complaint. Just silence. And for once, it was glorious. Around 2 p.m., we started wrapping things up. Riders revved their engines and rolled out in groups, leaving behind nothing but tire tracks and good vibes. A few neighbors clapped. One even handed me a cold drink and said, "You're a legend, man." I didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking the same thing. This wasn't just payback. It was a lesson. A message to anyone who thought fear, rules, and fake authority could squash someone's spirit. You want to mess with a biker? Better make sure you're ready for the whole street to rumble. By Sunday morning, the dust had settled, but the ripple effects of the suburban biker invasion were just beginning to spread. The street was quiet again, no revving engines, no cameras, no lawn chairs. Just me, my Harley, and a driveway that now felt like a battleground I had won. Or so I thought. The first sign that the HOA was rattled came around noon. I was outside watering my front hedge when an unfamiliar SUV pulled into my driveway. Out stepped a man in a polo shirt with an HOA badge clipped to his belt. Not one of the usual paper pushers. I could tell this guy had been sent in to handle situations. He extended a hand with a tight smile. "Mr. Simmons? I'm Ron Garrett. I'm with the HOA Regional Oversight Board. Mind if I have a word?" I nodded, motioning him toward the porch. He sat down carefully, like the chair might explode. "I'm going to be blunt," he said. "Yesterday's event caused quite a stir. We've received over 24 complaints." I raised an eyebrow. "From who?" My neighbors were all taking selfies and handing out lemonade. He cleared his throat. "Most of the complaints came from one household." "Let me guess, rhymes with Baron?" He didn't laugh. Not even a twitch. "Mr. Simmons, the HOA doesn't want this to escalate further. We understand your frustrations, and we admit that perhaps the original violation notice was not handled with the appropriate context." Translation: they knew Karen had overplayed her hand. "So," I said, leaning forward, "are we done here? No more fines? No more passive-aggressive notes about my Harley?" He hesitated. "That's why I'm here. We'd like to propose a compromise." And there it was. The HOA wanted to negotiate. "We'd appreciate it if you would tone things down. No more street displays. No more large gatherings. In exchange, we'll remove all outstanding fines, expunge the violation from your record, and formally update the vehicle display clause to exclude motorcycles parked on private property." I stared at him. For a long time. Then I smiled. "Fine," I said. "As long as I can park my Harley in my driveway without being harassed, we've got a deal." He sighed in relief. Stood. Shook my hand like he'd just defused a bomb. But the real bomb hadn't gone off yet. Because Karen wasn't done. That evening, I got a knock at the door. And this time, I wasn't expecting company. I opened it to find Karen, arms crossed, trembling with rage, eyes bloodshot like she hadn't slept in days. She wasn't wearing her usual smug expression. No, this was different. She was furious. "You think you won?" she hissed. I said nothing. "You embarrassed me. On camera. In front of my neighbors. You made me look like a fool." "No, Karen," I replied calmly. "You did that to yourself." She stepped closer. "I will never forget this. You and your gang of thugs made a mockery of this community." I smiled. "Funny. I thought we brought people together." She looked like she wanted to slap me. But instead, she snapped her fingers and pointed across the street. "You see that house over there? That's the Smiths. I got them fined for their garden gnome collection. And the Taylors? They had a Halloween dragon. I got banned. I know every rule in the book. I run this place." I leaned on the doorframe. "Not anymore." And then, I shut the door in her face. It was the single most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. But of course, she didn't take that well. The next morning, I woke up to find flyers scattered all over the neighborhood. Bright red letters. "Our neighborhood is under threat. Biker rallies, illegal gatherings, public disturbances, this is not what we agreed to when we bought homes here. Protect your property values. Say no to outsiders. Concerned resident, lot number 23. She didn't even bother hiding it was her. But here's the kicker, nobody cared. People were done with her. Someone scrawled, "Get a life," on one of the flyers and taped it to her mailbox. Others tore them down. A couple neighbors stopped by my place just to say, "We've had enough of her. You did the right thing." And that's when the HOA president himself showed up at her house. That evening, I watched from my porch as he knocked. Karen answered the door, and they had a full-blown argument on her front lawn. It wasn't quiet, either. I caught words like liability, overreach, and my personal favorite, "You're not queen of the HOA." A few people peeked from their windows. Someone even filmed it. And just like that, Karen's reign ended. The next HOA meeting was packed. For once, people actually showed up. The board officially revised the vehicle code, stated that motorcycles on private property are exempt, and publicly apologized for the misapplication of policy. But the highlight? Karen was removed from her position on the advisory committee. Effective immediately. She stormed out of the meeting, and for the first time since I moved in, she didn't glare at me on her way past. She didn't look at me at all. I kept my Harley parked right where it belonged, front and center. And every time I rolled it out to polish it, a few neighbors would wave. Sometimes, they'd stop to chat. One even asked if her son could take a picture sitting on it. Sure, I could have played it safe. I could have backed down, moved the bike to the garage, kept my head down like Karen wanted. But I didn't. Because people like her only win when the rest of us stay quiet. And sometimes, the best way to silence a control freak is with 100 decibels of rumbling chrome justice.